The 13th studio album from the American lo-fi indie rock outfit Car Seat Headrest presents a project where the main themes centre on early onset melancholy and depression of a teenage youth, his experiences, thoughts and feelings in specific settings, and his response to those who feel he's being overdramatic. With themes like these, it's easy to assume that this album could easily go down a whiny, woe is me, the world sucks and everything in it should burn route. What actually transpires is a well-written album that encapsulates a very relatable character that many listeners can relate to. Here's one of them. The album wastes no time in approaching the theme of depression on the opening track Fill in the Blank, where he seems to be having an inner conflict that he's not actually depressed since he's not seen or experienced enough of life in order to feel like this. However, he doesn't want to talk to anyone who approaches him on this matter, how outside influences including cops, people in general and even God are telling him to stay the fuck down. I think the guitars have a great rhythm going on here. I like the punchy nature of the song. I do feel that there could have been a stronger bassline anchor in the track, but it's a decent opener. The next track, Vincent, sees lead singer Will Toledo taking a trip down memory lane, recalling the location he lived in during his teenage years, interconnecting the theme of depression and sadness in the chorus where he's at a party yet he isn't enjoying himself and admits he doesn't feel like he belongs, possibly due to him being down in the dumps. I like the opening guitar rhythm, even if I can't help but feel the opening musical interlude does stick around for a little too long. When the singing comes around, the drums have a frenetic delivery going on, the distortion of the guitar adds a nice layer, and the introduction of the brass instruments and the music break give the song additional character. Destroyed by Hippie Powers is about the lead's reflection on his involvement in the drug and alcohol scene, reminiscing on these days and how they ultimately left him with no sense of fulfillment and how he would go one step too far by having that last beer or that last hit of DMT. The guitars create this wall of noise in the beginning before tempering and complementing the bass guitar nicely. And who doesn't love a bit of cowbell? I do. The lengthy titled Joe Gets Kicked Out of School for Using Drugs with Friends but Says This Isn't a Problem continues on from the last track, only a little more detailed about Toledo's drug experimentation along with people his own age during his teenage years. But even as he engaged in such activities, he emphasises further about the lack of enjoyment and fulfillment he felt during these moments, using some quite direct and unflattering language to describe himself and the people around him. An acoustic guitar opens up the song before the drums come in with an electric guitar rhythm. Everything has a soft and patient feeling before becoming slightly distorted halfway through and is taken slightly up in volume. The next track, Not Just What I Needed, originally down to incorporate the Cars' Just What I Needed, personally comes off as a rather sloppy track. Lyrically, the song comes off as our lead trying to find some advice to combat his melancholy, ultimately not being satisfied by the answers and suggestions given to him. Like I said, the track was originally meant to incorporate elements of the Cars track, but due to legality issues, the song was heavily chopped and changed, and it shows. I'm not overly keen on Toledo's upper register here, especially when his voice cracks, and I don't particularly go much on the back end of the song where this barely decipherable answer machine monologue comes in, and coupled with the fuzzed instrumentation, I don't find much appeal to be found here. The next song, Drunk Drivers Killer Whales, comes off as an inner conflict style track, painting the picture of being at a party that our lead isn't enjoying, wanting desperately to leave but due to the amount he's drunk, therein lies the dichotomy. He wants to leave but doesn't want to drink drive. Later, this scenario creates a reflective moment where this causes our lead to want to become a better person. I'm not particularly head over heels with the opening vocals. The synth opening is okay but disappears rather quickly, returning later on into the song, leading into rhythm guitars, the bass which does have some room to breathe in some areas. The pick guitar strings are bright and pleasant before the usual distortion comes in at a later stage. 1937 State Park reads as a mini vignette of a teen who feels disconnected from the people that he's at a party with. Feeling isolated from everyone around him, he leaves and ponders about where he stands in amongst the generation. The music, well, it's pretty much the same as before. Heavily distorted, lots of guitars and drums, etc. The next song, Unforgiving Girl, parentheses She's Not Anne, seems to come across as Will recanting an act of physical intimacy he shared with a previous love interest. He got spurned and relays how he was left reeling from this incident, and what resulted was a sense of confusion of why what happened, using a connection between his interaction with this female to that of a dysfunctional GPS. Instrumentally, it's decent indie rock, good rhythm from beginning to end, not much more to say. The track Cosmic Hero reads as a sit down and self-evaluate track where Will tries to seek out a solution to deal with his life's issues and failings, before contemplating what he sees as the one and only solution to rid himself of his problems: suicide. The only differentiating moments in this song is the horn section which opens up the track, and the synth line that closes the track with the electric guitar softly picking away before the drums and distorted guitar take over. Next is the 11.5 minute The Ballad of the Costa Concordia, a reference to the ship that sank in 2012, and using the tragic accident as a metaphor for his own life, how he sees it as such a wreck before getting to the stage where he's willing to just simply give up entirely and not try anymore. It comes off as a 3-part mini drama, and it's simply a glorious track, and it samples lyrics from Dido's White Flag. What's not to love? The first third has an inviting down-tempo feeling that's anchored nicely by the piano. The second third becomes a little more erratic before transitioning into the last third where the hi-hats and guitar rhythm have more prominence. The penultimate track, Connect the Dots, the Saga of Frank Sinatra, personally my least favourite song on the album, seems to carry some masturbation connotations here and there, including an underlying message of everyone has to die one day, but until then, relax, have a drink, and enjoy the ride while you're here. Personally, I feel that it's the most lyrically underwhelming song on the album, which is a shame because instrumentally it's pretty good. Naturally, it's the only track where the bass has a strong groove going on in the opening, which is a shame that it becomes washed out in the verses. The album's closer, Joe Goes to School, comes in at under 2 minutes and it's the shortest track on the album. The acoustic-led track sees our lead in awe of a horse before riding off down a road where he used to live, harkening back to the track Vincent. Nope, I don't get it either. In conclusion, I think Teens of Denial definitely has plenty to like about it. You definitely recognise that it's a personal album and that it has a relatable underbelly to it. Naturally, it's going to appeal to the 20-something demographic who are marginalised during their school years and felt separated from those around them, probably why I find myself gravitating towards this album. But irrespective of that tidbit, it's still strong regardless. I do feel that some songs hit the mark more so than others. It probably would have helped if some of the running time on these songs had been scaled back. I think the instrumentation could have had a little more variance and used more of the horns and cut back on the distortion, and because of the lo-fi nature, some of the vocals can become a little hard to decipher. It's not the best lo-fi album of the year, but it's still a good project nonetheless. Overall, I score this album a 79 out of 100.